Hey, welcome back to the show. Today I've got a guest whose story you're going to love, especially if you're building a brand online or thinking about launching your own membership. I'm joined by Austin Maddox, who's an incredibly talented content creator. She's a wellness coach and, of course, a very successful entrepreneur. You may already follow her on Instagram, where she's built a really thriving community of over 30,000 followers as of this recording. Or maybe you've seen her inspiring TikTok videos where she's has nearly 40,000 people tuning in for her daily dose of motivation and mindfulness and flow. And she's also running a successful online membership called Flow with Austin, using Uscreen, by the way, where she helps people find more balance and alignment in their day-to-day lives. But here's the kicker. It's actually really funny and sort of a personal story. I was in Toronto a couple of months ago with my family for vacation, and we were hanging out at Aritzia. My son and I were hanging out at the AOK Cafe while my wife and daughter were shopping. And as I was sitting there with my son, a video of Austin popped up on this massive wall-to-wall screen, this TV screen in the store. And it just dawned on me. I was like, is that Austin? I'm pretty sure that's Austin. And she's actually one of Aritzia's brand ambassadors, which is just one of the many incredible partnerships that she has also landed, and doing a ton of really cool partnerships as well. And so she really has figured out this content business. And so in this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk with Austin about how she built her brand, what she's learned along the way, and how she's navigating all the different exciting opportunities coming her way as her business continues to grow. And so I encourage you, grab your coffee, grab your tea, settle in, and let's dive into this conversation with the amazing Austin Maddox. All right, Austin, I'm gonna jump in. I'm just gonna jump right in. When you started, take us back to the early days when you first started. You've got an incredible presence now. You're getting all these crazy opportunities. But I'd love for you to go back to the beginning, when you started creating content, like before things took off. What was that like? Like, how did you get into, creating your own like content and building your online presence?
Yeah, I feel like so many people's stories start with the pandemic when you're just at home and you're left to your own devices. And I think in those moments, that's when your passion really shows up, when it's like you don't have to do anything. What do you gravitate towards? So I did a lot of yoga during that time and was just playing around. Literally didn't have any social media presence and was just posting videos of what I was doing, which included working on my handstands, my back bends, and I would just post them on my Instagram story. So only story, it's disappearing after 24 hours because I was just like, I wasn't taking social media seriously. So I would post and people really liked it. I got so much affirmation uh, from my posts. People were asking me to teach them as well. So I just kept going, and eventually those IG stories turned into reels and actually just posting for real and like looking at the engagement and just building community around that. So it kind of just started just sharing what I was up to, and it kind of evolved from there.
That's it. That's it. Just stories of like just sort of like your life, or were you doing like like fitness content, a little bit of everything? Yeah.
It was probably a little bit of everything, but again, because it was pandemic, there wasn't much of anything else besides, you know. And it's funny. I went to journalism school, so I taught myself how to edit and storytell online, and I kind of refined that in journalism school. And I feel all of those days learning how to edit coming back, making content. So I think I always had a lens for like aesthetics and editing correctly, or like in a way that was engaging, I should say. So I think once I started doing content, I was like, oh, I know I want a different angle. I want to explore editing techniques and things like that. So I was able to join my previous work in journalism with content creation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Was that journalism was like your trade like during the pandemic, or were you by the pandemic you already kind of doing your own thing?
I was working during the pandemic. I was working at worked in fashion actually. So I really don't use any of my degrees. I don't think I'm alone in that, but I was just kind of I collected a bunch of degrees and certificates in the pursuit of finding like what am I good at? What do I latch onto? I have parents that my mom is very much like go to school, get the job, like, very structured. And parents do that because they want you to do well and they want you to have security. And so I was able to do those things. I was first pre-med, then I was pre-law, and I like studied to take the LSAT. And I was going down this path because I wanted to make my parents and my family proud. Um, and I ended up just finding a job in marketing. So I fell into marketing and then production, and then worked in fashion at this company that kind of blends fashion and tech. And it was a really great experience because I got to learn about design, art, aesthetics, and also just project managing, which is really helpful, especially as you begin to start your own business and run like, your own content calendar. And so you see the things that you did in the past come up and you're like, oh, that's why I had to go through those things. So I was working during the pandemic in fashion as a project manager. And yeah, I was just working from home and then doing yoga in between calls, doing handstands and things in between calls and posting on my story. Yeah.
Post it on your story. What a full circle, because we were kind of laughing and I messaged you about this, but I got to share the story on the podcast that like we were in Toronto for a family vacation. I was telling you, and we were at Aritzia, and me and my son were at the cafe. Wife and daughter were like looking around, and then I see you on the big, their massive like 12-foot screen, and you're like in their ad. You're like the face of Aritzia for this store, and I was like, is this just for this store? Is this really Austin? What's going on? And so yeah, I messaged you, and we put that on the stories. But I mean, kind of full circle. You used to work in fashion. Now you kind of are still. Congratulations on that. But I would love to just like then fast forward a little bit. So you started sharing stories, reels, content. When did it become like that light bulb for you kind of clicked that like, hey, this could be like a full time. This could be like my career. This could be my business. Like when did that kind of click?
As my social following started to grow, I got so many messages asking for classes. Where can I take your class? Can you teach? Um, and so it was last year. Last year, yeah, I just hosted one class a week during the month of January, and they were completely free because I was like, I want to connect with this online community that's showing up, and I just want to see who's interested. So I did my first class at the beginning of the year as like this New Year's activation, and people from all over the world showed up, from Africa to France to South America, Brazil, everywhere. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. They really enjoyed the class. They shared a lot of it and were just really engaged. So I was like, okay, there's a need for classes, especially online, because these people are global. So that's kind of where Flow with Austin came in, and working with Uscreen to create this platform that allowed me to create a library of classes that people can not only take class, but engage with each other, with me, get information, and build a community there. So I would say it was that one experience, having free classes where so many people showed up from all over the world. I was like, all right, if I stop now, I'm really missing out on something really special.
Yeah. So timeline. This was still tail end of pandemic, like, or we're done with the pandemic at this point when you did this first sort of like live group class.
This was, what year is it? I think this was 2023, right? Yeah, we were out of the pandemic for sure. Yeah.
How did you facilitate, like where did you, because a lot of people are tuning in, right? They're like, okay, well that's really awesome. I've got a huge like following online. How do I
Mhm.
corral them? Like where did you do these classes? Like how did you do that, on Instagram, Zoom?
The best thing for me for those classes was having people sign up. I think I posted on my Instagram story, like, I'm hosting free classes. Give me your email, and then I will send an email with the link. So what that did was allow me to build up a mailing list. So I built up a mailing list to like, I think like 400 people at the time. And then I was able to collect their information. And from there, I just sent them a Zoom link. I was very basic, didn't like even have a website or anything. I just sent everybody who signed up their an email link or a Zoom link, and they were able to access the class from there. So it was very bare bones. So you don't have to do a lot to start either. So that's a good thing about technology.
When did you
Mhm.
start monetizing?
Being in the wellness space, especially now, you have to have your hands in a lot of different pots. So there's an aspect of my brand that is content creation and influencing. So I would say that kind of started first, where I was like, okay, I'm getting some brand deals that are with brands that I've always loved, like you mentioned, Aritzia and a lot of other brands. So I think my first one was with Beyond Yoga, maybe was my first like paid like brand sponsorship that I was like, oh wow, like I can really do this. And that just came from sharing on social media. And then of course I would teach classes around LA and I got paid for that as well. But in the wellness space and doing something like yoga, you don't really do it for money at first at all. But then, of course, you see how you can be a business owner now, especially with so many people using platforms like Uscreen and YouTube and all of that to help promote and support wellness practitioners. And it's really a powerful thing because before, as a yoga instructor, you really couldn't make a decent living, at least not in LA. So
What is the difference with Austin when you first started creating those stories and reels to like the Austin now, the way that you approach social media? Like, what's that relationship with social for you now?
it's definitely been a journey. I think in the beginning it was a lot more playful, a lot more bare bones, and just figuring out just Instagram in general, and not really understanding that people really wanted to see what I was doing. Kind of, especially when you have a practice that's so personal to you, like yoga was for me. I never thought that I would share that with other people because it has been such a vehicle for transformation for me. It's really personal. So back then I would kind of just share a little bit and then be scared again, not even posting on my reels, not posting on my actual page. So I think there was still a lot of shyness and honestly underestimating myself and underestimating maybe the rest of my audience or my community because people are so interested in wellness and yoga, especially now. So I think now I take on the responsibility of being of service to people and wanting to share information and being a resource. Now that I have more of a community and people who reach out to me for support, for whether that be mentorship, advice on becoming a yoga instructor or starting your own business, I take it more seriously. And now it's the balance of like having fun, bringing back that old Austin that was just like in her room having fun, and also mixing the like business and wanting to like, just be really informative. But I've found that sweet spot, I think, recently. So I'm excited and I have fun with it. And now I just have more resources, more inspiration, and just I'm better at editing and lighting and stuff like that.
You do everything so pretty much yourself, or do you have a team or VAs, or like what's the structure behind the scenes?
It's just me. I recently got an assistant within the past few months, which was amazing. I highly recommend anybody, if you're able, to get an assistant, especially if you're in the wellness space, because we do so much for other people to the point where sometimes we don't want to reach out for help, but it's so important to reach out to other people and also give other people the opportunity to contribute to your team, which is fulfilling for them as well. So right now it's just me and my assistant, and I've started to get more help with copywriting too, which is a big thing, and like web design and things like that. I'm starting to delegate more of that, but right now it's just me. So I self-taught editor, videographer, all of that.
Good for you. Good for you. So it can be done. It can be done. You guys, I'll share. Go check out Austin's Instagram, and you can kind of see all the stuff that she's sharing there. But as I scroll through, man, there's like all these comments, and people are like really locked in. Like, how do you still maintain as you get busier and busier with your business? Because you don't only have a membership. You're doing these like, work with brands like Aritzia and Aloe. how do you still maintain that connection? Because I feel like that's a big part of your success is like fostering
Yeah.
those connections.
Yeah. I think for me, it was important to be authentic with my community. I would, once things started to pick up, I felt like I had to be perfect. And as you start to work on a lot of things and expand, things are not always aesthetically pleasing. They're not always perfect, but people want updates on what you're doing. So it was kind of a practice in being kinder to myself and being like, look, if you've had a day where you're just in your sweats, but you get on your mat, people want to see that. So it's still bringing people into the process. And I find that even with Flow with Austin, building up a platform like that, people like to see behind the scenes. So it's whatever you're doing, try to find moments where you can bring people in. And honestly, having a strong calendar too of like, all right, this day, I'm going to make sure that I record content, and then staying in contact with your audience, reading your comments and seeing what people are interested in, what they like, look at your messages, respond to people there, because it can be a lot when you start working on your own business and with brands. But I find that social media and looking at my audience brings me back to my intention of being of service to people. And then realizing that they don't really care if like I'm using a cinematic camera for every post. They just want to see what I'm up to and be inspired and have be a part of that conversation.
What's some surprises that you've kind of come across along the way of like building your empire, building your business?
With anything, there's a level of detail that you can take. With starting a business, you can either, just have a website and just, go live and that's it. I am a Virgo. I go deep into the details. So it was just kind of even, and with Uscreen, it's so incredible because there are so many features, functions, aspects, and ways that you can curate your user's experience. And so I just went super deep into like everything to a fault. Sometimes I need a little bit more of the energy of just like, you know, just put it out and then evolve from there. But I was just getting into like pricing psychology and like a lot of the, honestly, another big thing was writing. So much of your marketing relies on how you describe through writing your offering. And that's why I'm really investing in a copywriter too, because I love writing, but it does take a lot of time. And especially if you really are intentional with the words that you're using, it can be helpful to have somebody help you just to get things out there and to get the writing and tone of voice solidified. Um, so yeah, I think that was something where I was like, oh gosh, I have to write a lot of stuff now. So I'm like, I thought I would just be doing like the splits every day, but it's like I am writing a lot. And yeah, so I think that was a big surprise for me.
But you've got all
Yeah.
these like cool opportunities now. How do you kind of measure or how do you decide what opportunities to pursue, which ones to say no to?
Yeah. I think I'm really discerning about what I choose to do. And I consider myself lucky to be able to do that. Just because with, multiple streams of income, you don't have to rely so much on one. And so if the brand comes to me and I don't really resonate with what they're offering, I'm in a place where I can say no. So I would definitely encourage any creators to set yourself up so you're not at the whim of brands. And so then you can choose and curate which brands you really want to work with, because that then contributes to your overall brand. So I have to say no a lot. And I choose the brands based on if I genuinely like them and I genuinely would use them, because I really take seriously how my community values my word and the time that they put in to watch my content and to engage with my content. I never want them to waste their time on something that I don't believe in. So I want to make sure that I believe in the product and the intention behind it, and also the the deliverables that they want. And a lot of things are negotiable too. You don't have to do what a brand comes to you with in the beginning. You can work with them to make sure that you feel comfortable. If you're not somebody that would like go live and they want you to go live, you're like, no, that's not what I do. My audience prefers if I, post a reel or something like that. You can you can negotiate, which is something that I do a lot. Um, and yeah, just picking brands that you would, be proud of and that you have a relationship with that you enjoy, and saying no to the brands that you don't love. Another thing is you're the one that has to do the work in the end. So if the price isn't something that you're going to feel good about when you're doing the work, and the brand isn't going to be something that you like when you do the work, you're going to just hate the whole process. So make sure you're going to be happy with it while you're recording and after, because then you're going to see it everywhere, and if you don't like it, then that's just not going to be a fun experience.
Where do you kind of see, I mean, your business, sort of like longer term? What is the sort of, what's the plan for Austin and, your brand in the next few years? And then also just for general creators, what do you think is like something that maybe is like not a blind spot, but just something to like for them to, if you could just kind of talk to all of them, like what is something that maybe they should look out for as they build their business?
I'll start with something that creators should look out for, or I think that's something that is lacking. I I think there's a lot of wellness content that speaks to, just like the physical aspect of wellness, which is great, and we all love those physical results. And I think in a world where you're on TikTok and you only have 20 seconds or something, you want to make something quick and snappy. But I think the sweet spot is finding that relationship between your own personal storytelling, how somebody else can build their own journey, not only physically, but emotionally through wellness. And it's hard to do. I still struggle with, like, how do I infuse how yoga has totally transformed my life in this 30-second clip? You can't always do that. But I think I've seen the most successful wellness creators infuse their own story of emotional, mental, and physical transformation. So keep it human. I know there's so many things out there saying, like, go viral by doing like these three things, which is great, but building a community requires you to be vulnerable and share your story. So continue to do that. And then what's next is, I mean, we're going global. I have a residency coming up, in the Cayman Islands with Palm Heights that I'm really excited about, and I want to continue to expand my yoga network. I've been traveling more than I ever have these past few years, and every time I travel, I try to take class, connect with the wellness community there. So I really am going to get into doing some retreats in the future, and traveling, bringing yoga to a bunch of beautiful destinations, and hopefully giving back to those places that I go to as well, leaving a positive impact there too. So, yeah, that's what we're planning for the future.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I do see a lot of like fitness and wellness, creators getting into the retreats, which is amazing. That's such a great business, right? Like such a lifestyle business, but also, um, yeah. And what really resonated with me was when you said like you can now decide which brands to work with because you're not sort of like in this desperation where like I need to take every brand deal, right? Like you have other revenue streams where you can like just pick and choose which ones you like. Austin, I want to respect your time. I know you're super busy. You got so much going on, but yeah, thank you so much for making time for us today. Please invite our folks here to check you out on your different channels.
Yeah, so I have flowwithaustin.com where you can access my membership. I have over 100 videos of all with yoga of different ability levels, beginner to advanced. And then I'm on Instagram and TikTok at _AUSMAD. So yeah, I'll see you there.